In the 1980s, Superman tried to solve the world's problems in just under 90 minutes, and the results were, well, questionable at best. On this episode of Moving Panels, we discuss Superman 4, The Quest for Peace. Welcome to Moving Panels, the podcast where we discuss movies and TV shows based on, inspired by, and adapted from the world of comic books. I'm your host, Laramy Wells, and as always, I've got my cinematic sidekick with me. He is the Lex Luthor to my Clark Kent, or maybe he's the Lenny to my Lex. Anyway, host of the 80s Flick Flashback, please welcome Tim Williams.
The Dude of Steel. Boy, are you going to get it.
See, you're the Lenny.
Yeah,
there you go.
I was going to either do Destroy Superman or that one, and I was like, well, he's giving me options for both, so I just went with Lenny.
Yeah, you're the Lenny. There you go. All right, so here we are at the beginning of June, and for those of you who are have been with us on this show, you know that at the beginning of June, we have been following the Superman movies. We, of course, started with the first Superman, and then we've done Superman 2, Superman 3, we went to Supergirl because we're going in chronological order. And now here we are at Superman 4. So we've been going downhill the entire time.
Yeah. Doesn't get any better. That's for
and
sure.
Tim has been with me for all of these. So here we go. Let's talk about Superman 4, The Quest for Peace, the movie that almost ended all comic book movies when it came out. This was the first Superman film that actually didn't involve the Salkinds.
Right.
Supergirl wasn't great for them. Superman 3 wasn't great for them. And they actually thought, okay, maybe superhero movies have, there's no more interest in them. So they decided to take a trip to another flying iconic hero, and you and I have talked about this on your show before, and that is Santa Claus the movie.
Oh boy!
Look,
it's not terrible. It's just not as great as it could have been.
True, which that seems to be the case with these later Superman movies too. So yeah, Santa Claus the movie not successful either. So the Salkinds decided, hey, we're going to sell the rights to making a Superman movie. And they sold it to Canon Pictures for $5 million in June of 1985. So 40 years ago, the Superman went to Canon. Oh, Canon Films. Tim, what do you know about Canon Films?
Oh, gosh. It's funny to say that I've covered a lot of Canon Films on my podcast.
Yes.
Only because they were so memorable.
Cheap.
Yeah. Memorable, not necessarily in a great way, but yeah, cheap. But they lost a lot of their luster over the years. Not that there was a lot of luster there to begin with, but we were young and impressionable. But go ahead.
What do you think the best Canon film is? Like, what do you think? I'm not going to say I know all of them, so there's nostalgia for like Masters of the Universe.
Yeah,
there's nostalgia for that.
All the ones that
not
popped in my head are like, they're not great, but they're movies that Over the Top is not a great movie, but it's one that I would rewatch.
Yeah, that was probably the one that came to my mind.
Yeah.
Is that if I were probably to say what is the best, I would probably say Over the Top.
Yeah. So there's the missing in action ones are pretty bad.
Breakin' 2, Electric Boogaloo.
Yeah, why not?
Hey.
Yeah.
They did Cyborg, didn't they?
They did do Cyborg. Yeah. So, and that one did not age well at all.
No,
as we discussed previously.
I don't think it aged well in the 80s when it came out either. So.
I liked it when it came out. It just didn't. It didn't hold up. But
Yeah, again, tune into 80s Flick Flashback for that episode as well.
I need to,
because you'll find out my feelings about Cyborg.
I need to add Canon Films as one of the genres on my website so that I can just have them all.
Yeah, just have a list of the Canon films.
I may do that. I may do that. So yeah, just go to the website 80sflickflashback.com and search Canon, and all the Canon films we've covered will be there for your pleasure. So.
There you go. You're probably going to surprise yourself as to how many you've actually covered.
I was like, well, this one was? Oh, wow. Yeah. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, now they have Superman. So I'm telling you this so that you already kind of know if you've never seen Superman 4, like this was not good that it went to Canon Films.
Yeah, when you put Canon on it, the expectation is there. Like, you know what you're signing up for. It's like an Adam Sandler movie. You know what it's going to
be. Yeah. You know what to expect. But it's just so weird because there was a level 4 Superman. Now I know it dipped a little bit with Superman 3.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a level 4 Superman. But then, Canon, this was the lowest budgeted Superman movie at ultimately, I think it was $17 million.
Yeah.
Was the budget, which got cut throughout production. And this movie definitely shows.
Yeah. Which I think the original budget was $50 million, and then got cut to 17, and then
Yeah, and then we got what we got. But we finally got Superman 4. July 24th of 1987 was when it was released worldwide. So that means it's been 9 years that we have had Christopher Reeve as Superman.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, first Superman in 78. Now we're in 87. So 9 years. Can you believe that? 9 years of Christopher Reeve as Superman. But here we have at a movie that I think is just under 90 minutes. I saw some places where it says 89 and then other places where it says 90. So it's probably like 89 and some change. It just depends on how you look at it.
Yeah,
but
you got you've got 5 minutes of intro of the titles at the beginning. So it's less than 90 minutes of actual footage.
And then you get a repeat of Superman and Lois flying, and then you get a repeat of Superman flying towards you again,
a couple of times,
and again. This one's we're going to be talking about this one. This is the redheaded stepchild of the Superman movies. So, all right. So let's get into it. So they needed a director, and I actually, for a long time, before I really got into studying films and all that, I actually thought Christopher Reeve directed this movie.
I bet he wished he did.
Well, he wanted to.
Yeah.
And he did direct some of the B footage. Mm-hmm. However, if you watch some of the behind the scenes stuff, you would think he was the director.
Right.
But no, they thought he was too inexperienced, so they wouldn't allow him to direct. Richard Donner was asked to return, as well as Richard Lester. Mm-hmm. But Richard Lester decided he wanted to go another route, and not be bogged down to that genre because he had directed Superman 3. Richard Donner, I hope I said those right because they're both named Richard and always gets confusing. Richard Donner, unfortunately, couldn't do it because he was in the process of filming Lethal Weapon. Mm-hmm. So, dang it. But believe this or not, they actually hired Wes Craven.
Yeah, I saw that.
To be the director of this. Mm-hmm. Wes Craven, of course, had already released Nightmare on Elm Street by this point. Of course, he started off with Swamp Thing that we've covered on this show before. Mm-hmm. And he like Richard Lester, wanted to, break out and try a different genre. And so he was hired, and he came on. And to my knowledge, he started production. But apparently he and Christopher Reeve did not get along.
Nope.
And as we'll talk about a little bit more later, since Christopher Reeve had a lot of pull in this movie, mm-hmm. he got Wes Craven fired. I then discovered that Christopher Reeve actually recommended Ron Howard to direct, which would have been pretty impressive. I mean, he was still kind of new.
Yeah.
He, of course, had done Splash and Cocoon by this point, so he was becoming a big name, but this may have put a stop to that. But you never know. Ron Howard could have made it a good movie. But no, we end up with a guy straight off of directing and writing the movie Iron Eagle.
Yeah. Once again, you know what you're going to get.
Yeah. We get Sidney J. Furie. Mm-hmm. Canon thought that, hey, this guy could do action. And so they hired him. Mm-hmm. I don't know where they thought he could do action, but There you go. He had also directed 2 other movies before this, The Entity in 1982 and Purple Hearts in 1984. I am not familiar with either of those.
Yeah, The Entity I don't think I've ever seen, but I think I remember seeing the VHS cover comes to mind. Purple Hearts, though, is completely unknown to me.
Yeah. I also found out he directed a lot of TV. I didn't write all that down. But I also found out he directed the 1992 Rodney Dangerfield soccer movie, Ladybugs. A movie that would not hold up today.
No.
Not at all. They also they brought in some writers, a fairly young team of Lawrence Connor and Mark Rosenthal, who in the 80s had already done The Legend of Billie Jean, which is one of those, I think, underrated great 80s. I actually do enjoy that movie.
Yep, me too.
They, of course, had a big hit with The Jewel of the Nile in 85. They did a movie called The In Crowd in 1988. You familiar with that one? No. Okay, and neither am I, so you can look that one up. Then in the 90s, they had a nice little run that I'm just going to list off real quick. As a big Stephen King fan, they were the writers behind Sometimes They Come Back.
Okay.
They wrote Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country.
Okay. For
Love or Money, the Michael J. Fox movie.
I remember that one. Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
The Beverly Hillbillies movie.
I loved that movie.
With Jim Varney. Yes. That means these are the guys that came up with the all I ever wanted was a penis. That's such a good movie.
Yeah. I need to rewatch that one. I haven't seen it in a long time, but yeah, that one and the Brady Bunch movies still make me laugh, even though they're terrible.
I wasn't ever a big fan of the Brady Bunch, either one of the Brady Bunch movies, but Beverly Hillbillies is hilarious. Is great. And part of that's the cast. I mean, Jim Varney, Gloria Leachman, Diedrich Bader. Yeah. It's great.
Was it Dabney Coleman, wasn't he?
Yes.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Yeah, he was the banker. I forgot his name. Yeah. He was.
Not Mr. Drysdale. I'm thinking of the Jetsons. Anyway, moving on.
No. I think you're right. Oh, yeah, man. Because it was Mr. It was Cobwebs. Yeah, it was Mr. Sprocket on.
Oh, Sprocket. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, we are nerds. All right. Moving on.
I can't believe I knew that. That's what's so funny.
They were also the writers of the Bruce Willis action movie Mercury Rising, which I'm a Bruce Willis fan.
Yeah. That was good. I haven't seen it in a while, but that was a good one.
And then they did a few remakes. They did Mighty Joe Young in 98, Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes in 01, Flicka in 2006. They also wrote Mona Lisa Smile, the Julia Roberts drama. And I had to put it, they were also the writers behind the Nicolas Cage movie The Sorcerer's Apprentice. My goodness, the hodgepodge of movies that I just named.
Gotta make a living.
But yeah, so they came on as the writers for the screenplay, although you will notice in the opening credits that Christopher Reeve also gets story credit. Essentially, he just came up with the idea. The idea of Superman trying to stop war globally. That was Christopher Reeve's idea. Christopher Reeve, of course, was a big activist at this time, and so this was kind of a passion project for him. Something that he could tell a great story about. And I'm not saying he didn't try to tell a great story.
Yeah.
This is going to be short and brief, but let's get into the comic book connection.
Yeah, I figured this was going to be a short section.
This is the comic book connection theme.
The film's central premise, Superman ridding the world of nuclear weapons, is original to the movie, as I just mentioned. However, it echoes Superman's moral compass from the comics, especially during the Silver Age, where he often took on global issues. There is some inspiration from stories like Must There Be a Superman, from Superman number 247 from 1972, where Kal-El questions his role in human progress. Nuclear Man, however, is all original. He has no comic book counterpart, though a version of him did appear in a 2018 issue of Superman, and that is the only issue that Nuclear Man has ever appeared in. So,
For good reason.
Yeah, all original, very similar to Superman 3, not a lot of comic book connection. But so let's just jump into it and talk about the cast. And of course, we've got returning Christopher Reeve as Superman, Clark Kent. Just like with Superman 3, he didn't really want to come back.
Right.
But $6 million and approval of both the story and the director, that'll
get you in.
That'll get you going in the $6 million to do a movie in the 80s. Absolutely. They also canon agreed to back a movie that Christopher Reeve had. I think he had already made. He was just trying to find distribution. Called Street Smart,
right?
Which I am also not familiar with. Are you familiar with that at all?
Yes, I haven't seen it, but I do. I haven't seen all of it. I've seen bits and pieces of it, but it's one that's on my watch list to revisit.
Yeah, it has to do with like he plays a journalist, a reporter that gets caught up in some. Is it like a mob issue or something?
Yeah, I don't know the specifics. I just know like it's something to do with Morgan Freeman is who he's trying.
Yeah, Morgan Freeman's in it.
Yeah, so see those two together. That's why you want to watch it.
Yeah, but it I'll go ahead and let everybody know it was a commercial failure. Mm-hmm. That's probably why you've never heard of it. So they also somehow got Gene Hackman to return.
Yeah, which is surprising.
As Lex Luthor. I couldn't find any story as to how they got Gene Hackman to come back. Gene Hackman, probably one of the only actors in this movie who knew what movie he was in. I don't know. John Cryer comes pretty close too.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Gene Hackman would also be the voice of Nuclear Man.
Yes.
Which they clearly reveal, that you have my voice. No, you have my voice. Such a stupid line. Mm-hmm. But Nuclear Man himself is played by British bodybuilder and first-time actor Mark Pillow. Mm-hmm. This was his first and only film.
Not surprised.
Also, not the only person in this movie for this to be their first and only film.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Because the little kid that plays Jeremy, I didn't even write his name down. I just wrote this note. It was also the same for the actor that played Jeremy.
Damien McLaughlin.
There you go. Yeah, first and only film. Mark Pillow did, though, have a short-lived TV series in 1993 that was called Alaska Kid. I just found that in my research. Know nothing about it.
Nothing.
But there you go. We then get also returning in Blink and You'll Miss Them roles, Jackie Cooper as Perry White, Mark McClure as Jimmy Olsen, and Margot Kidder trying to have a bigger part as Lois Lane. I will say I'm pretty sure this was when Margot Kidder was really going through some of her issues.
Yeah, she doesn't know.
And it is obvious. Yeah, she doesn't look good. She slurs a lot of her words too. Mm-hmm. I noticed there's some moments where, you can tell maybe she's under the influence while in the process of filming. I mean, I hate it. I know that she went through a rough time in her life. Luckily, this would not be the last time she would get to be a part of the Superman universe, because she would get to come back in Smallville, of course, playing a completely different character. But both her and Christopher Reeve did make their appearances on the show Smallville in the early 2000s, but we're not talking about that right now. And then probably a great get for them was John Cryer, because he had just played Ducky. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so they were like, hey, look, we can get John Cryer. And John Cryer's like, hey guys, and then John Cryer realized, oh crap. I will say, though, he did get his redemption. For those of you that don't know, John Cryer would later...
Yes.
He played Lenny Luthor in this, but he would later become Lex Luthor in the CW's Arrowverse. First appearing in Supergirl, but then when it all crosses over, he was the official Lex Luthor for the Arrowverse. So I think John Cryer got the final laugh when it comes to this. Just to also throw out the random other characters they decided to put in this movie. Sam Wanamaker played David Warfield, the rich guy who takes over the Daily Planet for 4 days or however long this movie is supposed to, the length of time this movie is supposed to take.
Yeah, I think it's supposed to be longer. It just feels like 4 days.
Yeah. And then his daughter, Lacey Warfield, played by Mariel Hemingway, who they just clearly brought in to be a love interest for Clark and cause some... Why she's attracted to Clark, we do not know.
Yes.
Nothing against Clark Kent, but that story is not fleshed out at all.
No,
she just goes...
There's a lot not fleshed out in this.
I'd like to see... I'd like to date this man, and we don't know him. I did want to throw in just oh look, that's Jim Broadbent in the background there. He plays one of the arms dealers that Lex deals with. I think he maybe says 2 words in the entire movie. But yeah, there's Jim Broadbent. For those of you who know that actor, Moulin Rouge, to name. I mean, he's in the Harry Potter movies. You know him. You've seen him. Anybody I left out? I think I pretty much hit them all.
No, you covered. I did recognize another kind of that guy as William Hootkins as one of the other arms dealers, and I just know him as the guy that's talking to Indiana Jones at the beginning of Raiders of the Lost Ark. He's one of the it's like one of the researchers or whatever that's telling them explains to him about the Ark. So
is he the one that pretty much does all the talking for the 3? Yeah.
And in this one, he says, like you said, he says like 4 words of dialogue. In this one, that's about it. So
yeah, okay. So yeah, there you have it. We've got our cast. What did you think about the whole Warfield takeover of the Daily Planet?
Like you said, with I don't know if this was the screenwriters or if this was Christopher Reeve. Of course, the nuclear thing is a big message in the movie, but also there's a very strong message of journalism versus sensationalism.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of felt like they were thrown in to kind of be that. That's not what people want. People want headlines. They want scandalous headlines, not real journalism. And so it gets very message heavy in different parts. So that's
which in 2025, it's very interesting because, clearly it's like he's talking about clickbait is what he's talking about. Yeah. Let's just, reel people in with a picture and a headline.
Headline, right.
To a nonsensical story or whatever. But yeah, a news organization that cares more about making money than reporting the news. Man, to think that in 1985 that was a big deal.
Yeah, or if they saw that coming. The early signs of it. So,
because CNN had just launched, so we didn't really have these big, news organizations.
No, not like it is today.
No, it was local news, and then the big news came from newspapers. The Washington Post, New York Times. Of course, you had your local ones, but those were probably the 2 more global news sources. And so, yeah, that it is interesting. All right, well, we've got so much to talk about. I want to go ahead and wrap up this first half before we start just really going into this movie. So let's go ahead, watch it or read it. So if you've never seen Superman 4: The Quest for Peace, Tim, should they watch it or should they read it?
Well, where are they going to read it? I talk about
would they read some other? Just read some Superman comics.
I would read some Superman comics above watching this for sure.
Yeah. So this may come as a surprise. I'm going to say watch it.
Okay.
I know that I have a Superman bias, but this is what I would call a bizarre piece of comic book movie history.
Yeah.
It's one of those where it's almost like a rite of passage. Like, if you're going to be a comic book movie fan, you have to know Superman 4.
Yeah, you've got to watch Jonah X.
It's like, you've got to watch Howard the Duck.
Yeah. What was the other one we did? Not Bloodsport. What was the Vin
Bloodshot?
Diesel? Bloodshot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Venom.
Yeah.
Madam Web. The list goes on.
Well, see, I don't know. You're starting to get into some where I would say, I don't think you have to, but I do think this is one you have to. Because of how important it was. Because you are looking at, this is the movie that ended the Superman franchise. Mm-hmm. We wouldn't get another Superman movie for 20 years. Yeah. Almost to the day, 20 years.
Yeah. Yep.
And then I think it was 2006 was when Superman Returns came out. So, yes, we would get Batman, a couple years later in 89, and Batman would come back and rejuvenate it. But you almost had to worry that this movie was going to be the end. Mm-hmm. In fact, Canon also had the film rights to Spider-Man.
Yep, sure did.
And we're planning a Spider-Man movie, but because this movie failed, Canon decided to not move forward.
But they didn't have the money to move forward.
Well, that's true. That as well. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so we maybe it would have ended had we gotten the Spider-Man movie. You never know. But again, this is the last time Christopher Reeve plays Superman. So I am a little biased. Christopher Reeve is always my Superman, and this is still one of his. But I will also say, as a kid, this movie was fun to me. It was a fun Superman movie. I wasn't at the level yet where I could have, critiqued it and analyzed it to the point that we do now. But as a kid, it was fun.
Yeah.
And I do remember, of course, I saw it on television as a kid. I didn't see it in theaters. I was 4 when it came out. I didn't ask you, when was the first time you saw Superman 4?
Today.
Really?
I was thinking, I was like, I don't know if I ever really watched it all the way through, because even watching it today, I was like, I really don't remember any of this. Like, I've seen bits and pieces.
Yeah.
But after Superman 3, and of course I'm older than you, so I remember seeing Superman 3, and with a friend of mine that I went to see, leaving the theater like, that wasn't good, right? Like, we knew even then, it was like, that wasn't what we expected. So by the time this came out in 87, I was kind of like, I'm not even gonna give it a shot. So I think watching it all the way through might have been, this week. So.
Yeah. I forgot this movie came out in July, so I had actually turned 6.
Okay.
So I was 6 when this movie came out.
Yeah.
But so too young. I wouldn't have saw it in theater.
But to your point, even watching it today, I'm like, it plays more like a kid's movie, not like totally kids. Yeah. But like I was saying, if I was like 10, like you said, like 10, 11, I would think it was great. Like I wouldn't have the qualms that I have with it now, because you're looking for those action sequences. You're looking for the fights between, Nuclear Man and Superman.
Yes.
And, all the things that we've kind of seen in the previous Superman movies, probably because it's the actual footage, but sequences we've seen before kind of duplicated again. But so I like, as a preteen, this movie would have been great, but as an adult, not so much.
Yeah, and that's where I am. That's why I'm saying watch it, because as a kid, after growing up watching, the Super Friends, and you're looking at late 80s, early 90s. I mean, there wasn't a lot of superhero stuff out there, so this was, this was a big deal, and seeing it, Saturday morning on television, was a great thing to watch as a kid. So yes, I'm going to go out there, as much as we're bashing it and about to bash it more, I am going to say, hey, if you haven't seen it, at least watch it.
Hey guys, I'm Tom Welling. I used to play Clark Kent on Smallville.
I'm Michael Rosenbaum. I used to play Lex Luthor on Smallville. Join us every week as we go back.
Way back.
Welcome to Talkville. This is a Smallville rewatch podcast.
I feel like we've gotten to a point now in our lives where it's fun to talk about Smallville.
I hope you're excited to dive in all things Smallville.
Who knows what's going to happen?
Join us as we'll discuss each episode. Well, let's get into it. The pilot, they're like, hey, sweetie, how are you, my little 3-year-old? Boom! Dead.
Metamorphosis. We always called it bullet time. Clark is moving faster than everybody, but leisurely. He's like not really in a hurry.
This is hothead. Quan just walks out of the room like, oh, okay, leave that fire. I won't help you. And then he leaves the fire. Nobody puts the fire out.
I just really love this episode.
The meteor shower.
You know, when Clark sees Lana and trips and falls.
Even John and Annette.
How handsome is John Glover?
You know what bothered me?
I kind of remember being like, this is ridiculous.
They lingered on this kryptonite.
They call it Freak of the Week.
He figured it out! What does it take another 10 years? I'm excited.
I know. And we're going to keep it fun.
But it's the story before the story,
Clark
which has
Kent.
never really been seen.
It wasn't Superman, it was Clark Kent.
It's Clark Kent, it wasn't Superman.
You know, you're the second best Lex Luthor ever.
If I can go back, I would do a lot of things differently.
At the time, I looked up to you.
That I don't think people really were aware of.
The beauty of the ignorance that Clark had and I had. And we want to hear from you guys, the fans, about what you liked, you didn't like, what excited you. I find that the participation is fun. Like, some of the questions we get are like, oh, I didn't even know that.
The phone line is 213-538-2883.
When Clark returns the truck to Lex, it was only the second time they've met, and Lex is already practically declaring them BFF.
Who chose music for each episode? Bang up job. Like the music was always on.
Talkville. What do you remember? Join Tom Welling and Michael Rosenbaum every week as they rewind every episode of Smallville and discuss their experiences with friends, fans, and co-stars. Talkville, the ultimate Smallville podcast. Listen anywhere you get your podcasts or watch on YouTube.
All right, so let's get to talking, and we're going to take a trip around the spinner rack and discuss this movie in detail. And as always, we're going to start off with our speech bubble. Actually, no, scratch that. Oh my God, I literally just punned myself, but you'll find out in a second. I wanted to ask you a quick question.
Okay.
When Superman is affected by Nuclear Man's scratch, which makes him really weak and causes him to, for some reason, age rapidly.
Once again, plot hole that I didn't understand. Go ahead.
Oh, my weird science list is so long for this one. But anyway, do you think that Rosenthal and my mind went blank on the other writer, Connor, do you think that they were inspired by Frank Miller's Dark Knight Returns? Because in that comic, Superman is hit by a nuclear bomb, which causes him to shrivel up. Of course, the sunlight eventually rejuvenates him. Or do you think that the people who made this movie had never read a comic book in their life?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think they probably had read some comics, not enough. They're screenwriters. I think they were taking a job and just trying to make a movie that worked based on what Reeves had given them as a story plot line. And like I said, tried to piece things that worked in previous Superman movies. I don't think there was a whole lot of thought into this one.
No, I don't either. No, absolutely. Yeah. No, I definitely think it was the latter. I will, as the big Superman and Christopher Reeve fan, and I will point this out for everybody, but Tim did just make an error. It is Reeve, not Reeves.
Thank you.
Yes. George Reeves, Christopher Reeve.
Yes. I'm Southern. I put S's on everything.
It's
It's
yeah,
JC
go
Penney's. It's Target's.
Going to the Walmarts.
There exactly.
Yeah. All
It's
right.
on my DNA.
So now let's get into our favorite speech bubble, a quote that we either thought was just really good or just really funny. Tim, what do you have for your speech bubble?
I'll be honest. I don't have a lot. I've got more like not great lines than I have good. Like there was nothing that was like really great in this one. One line that didn't make me laugh was Lex Luthor's jab at Lenny.
Which one?
Yeah, no. when Nuclear Man when he first gets introduced, and then he like shrinks down because he goes in the shadow, and Lenny's like, "Oh no, he's like cold," and Luthor says he gets his energy from the sun. Without it, he's like you at night, useless.
Useless. Yeah, yeah. I like that. I actually put one as well. That's why I was curious. Which one did you pick? The one I wrote down was Lenny. Let's try and keep your IQ a family secret.
Yeah, I had that one down. That was a funny one. Yeah, and then kind of weird lines is the elders. If you teach the earth to put its fate in one man, even yourself, you're teaching them to be betrayed. Betrayed.
Yeah.
Betrayed. Like, okay, I was like, okay, it's a little heavy-handed there.
I will say that's where when I mentioned the comic book connections, the story from 72, I think that's where it has the biggest connection, because in that storyline, Superman is actually questioned by the Guardians.
Okay.
You know, the alien creatures who created the Green Lanterns. And they actually are trying to convince Superman that he is negatively affecting Earth.
Right.
And so it makes Superman kind of question all of that. So it's that scene that kind of where I think, okay, well, they at least had to have maybe read that one comic.
Or
who knows,
somebody
though?
told him about it.
Who knows, though? I agree with you. There's not a lot of great lines. I mean, some of the stuff that Christopher Reeve says, when he's speaking to the UN at the beginning, and then when he speaks to everybody at the end. I mean, there's some poignant stuff in there, but it's also kind of cheesy.
Yeah.
I also got a kick out of when he stops the first responders from getting to the train conductor that had a heart attack. And he goes, hold on just a minute. I just want everybody to know it's still okay to ride the train.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's still the safest form of transportation.
Right.
Thank you.
Right.
And then, okay, now y'all can
save this man's life.
Save this man's life. Yeah. But I did write down one from Nuclear Man, just because it's a funny delivery. If you will not tell me, I will hurt people.
Yeah. And the other one was was Superman when sorry, I got the frog in my throat. When
it's got to be bad for you, but it must be worse for the frog.
When Nuclear Man is like in the city and he's like doing all his mass destruction, and Superman's like, no, think of the people.
Think of the people. No.
I'm like, you're just standing there watching him do this. Help them, So.
Like, do something, Superman. Come on. Oh, I want to get to the weird science.
I was about to bring something up. I was like, no, I'll wait.
All right. So next, of course, we do our moving panel. A scene that we felt like it was from a comic book, or really just our favorite scene. I will say this. I am probably in a minority, and we will talk about some of this in the weird science part. I actually get a kick out of the fight on the moon.
Yeah.
Like there's something I just enjoy about it.
It's something. It was different. At least it was a different setting. Yeah. So.
It was definitely a set. That was.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know where they thought that we were supposed to think they were. So yeah, I've got another one, but I'm curious. What's your scene?
The one that I think once again they're not. I don't have. I'm like you. I don't have any favorite scenes in this movie. You've said that a few times on my podcast, so I'm saying it on yours. But the one that was the most comic like was when the volcano was erupting and he cuts off the top of the other mountain that perfectly fits into the hole of the volcano. Which
I'm pretty sure going ahead and getting some weird science. Pretty sure that's not how that would work.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure you can't just plug up a volcano.
Yeah. Maybe not a comic, but very much a cartoon going to the fight on the moon when Nuclear Man is hammering.
Pounds them into
I was like,
the moon.
I felt like I'd already seen that in Popeye. I think Popeye does that to Bluto in the Popeye movie.
Or Bluto does it to Popeye, and then Popeye has to like suck up the spinach with his pipe or something.
That was it. So there was a lot. Yeah, I felt like those two scenes were very connected.
Yeah, you know what? Now that you say that, I think that exact moment happens in the Robin Williams Popeye movie. I really do. Yeah, I think you're right. I also threw out. I kind of enjoy the double date scene.
I didn't.
It could be better.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna deny that. It could be better. Definitely Richard Donner could have done it better. I think Richard Lester could have done it better.
Yeah.
It would have had a lot more of the slapstick. You look at that opening scene of Superman 3. He could have put a lot more of the slapstick into it. But yeah, it kind of dragged a little, I will admit. I think more I like the concept of it more than the execution.
Yeah. I was going to say, it felt forced. Like, okay, we need this little comedic element, this, screwball comedy kind of moment. But like you said, it wasn't executed well enough. And then it just kind of, the way it abruptly ends, with him,
Yeah.
with it's like it just doesn't fit. It just feels
No,
like an
and
awkward
also
piece.
the fact that Clark never seems worried.
Yeah,
Like he knows he can easily get back and forth and back and forth. There's never any almost like, he almost gets caught.
Right.
Like having him swoop in as Superman but still be wearing the glasses. Or something like that to happen. Or maybe come back in as Clark, but his cape isn't fully tucked in. Or
you needed those little bits to
Yeah.
sell it a little better. Yeah, I agree.
So, but anyway, all right, here we go. This is almost an entire page on my document here. Let's get into it. The weird science.
Weird science.
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm just gonna start off with this. This is what I have written as my first note. Nuclear Man. That's it.
Doesn't make sense.
That's it.
Yeah.
Nuclear Man.
Yeah. And yeah.
Anything you want to say about Nuclear Man?
I mean, yeah, the whole idea, the putting the little things in the box, cutting up pieces of material that the computer magically will make sure it fits into a perfectly tailor-made costume.
Yeah,
which when he first walked out, I was like, why did they make it flesh tone? Because it looks like he doesn't have any, it's like a loincloth and like bare legs when he first.
Yeah, it's like he's wearing a tunic.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like, first off, what silly putty blob did they create out of Superman's hair?
Where did he get Superman's hair?
Well, we'll talk about that in a second.
Okay.
And then, how does it work that a computer, when it gets thrown into the sun, which would essentially destroy the computer, how does that then create? How does that work? And then he's solar powered, which we see when he walks into the shade. He just immediately, even though there are several other times in the movie where we see him in kind of some shaded areas. But he's doing just fine. And then Superman puts him in the elevator and gets him all the way up to the moon without any issue. But as soon as the sun rises on the moon, a little sliver of light gets into the elevator. Why did no light get into the elevator before that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And while we're there, can we talk about the eclipse? Why do we see
absolutely.
no kind of, nothing bad happens to the Earth during an eclipse, obviously, that they didn't plan for?
I have that on here too. Superman moves the moon out of orbit.
Right.
Which I'm pretty sure would have caused several global issues. I mean, it would affect
tides.
It would, and the time.
Yeah, time.
Like,
yep.
It would affect what's the time zones.
And he
because
never
the
puts
moon
it
would
back.
be in a different position, and or that we know of. He never puts it back. No, I've got that down. Let's see. Let's just go through this list. Here we go. When they get onto the moon, or no, this is in the open. This is in the open when Superman saves the Russian.
Yes.
How is his cape waving in the vacuum of space? His cape is just flowing. Not only that, but after he saves the Russian, with the door open, he then talks to them.
Yes.
In the vacuum of space.
Yes.
And continuing talking about space, let's jump a little further into the movie. How does Lacey breathe in space? This Nuclear Man just takes her right into space.
Yeah. No problem.
And then when the eclipse happens and Nuclear Man loses all his power, how does Lacey fall in space?
Yeah.
She's hanging on. Like, oh my God, I'm going to fall. How? You're in space. And then I would love to see how Superman then returned her through the atmosphere.
Yes.
Without her just disintegrating. But yeah,
Science.
I don't know
weird.
if maybe that scene was supposed to happen somewhere else. And they just went, hey, to make the green screen effect look the best, we've got to put it up against the black space.
Yeah.
Instead of...
Now, I will say a lot of this is because I read that it was a 2-hour long, like the original edit was like right at 2 hours.
Yes.
And Canon.
It's like a whole 40 minutes that
they cut it
out.
down to 130 because they wanted the thing was going to be such a big hit. They wanted theaters to be able to play it more often. So they wanted to keep it right at an hour and 30, which is why I think, especially that one, when I feel like the section when Clark gets scratched and becomes sick or whatever, like a lot of stuff happens there that we kind of have to create in our own minds because it doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah.
The aging that you mentioned before.
Yeah, which that also gets to me. Nuclear Man, Superman is trying to rescue the Statue of Liberty. Mm-hmm. Nuclear Man flies up, prime chance to just take out Superman, mm-hmm. and he just scratches them. Mm-hmm. Just gives them a little scratch and then flies off. Mm-hmm. Like, okay, you've now injured Superman. He's now weak. Mm-hmm. Great time to, as he says, destroy Superman.
Right.
And he just leaves. Mm-hmm. But yeah, like you're talking about, even the whole him kidnapping Lacey, apparently in the 40 minutes, there was this whole sub-story about Nuclear Man actually like becoming infatuated with Lacey.
Yeah, that was kind of implied, but it wasn't really fleshed out. You know?
No, he sees the newspaper article and then... Because, yeah, when he arrives at the Daily Planet and says, where's the woman? Mm-hmm. And Superman's good, you'll never find her. How does Superman know who he's talking about?
Yeah.
Because there's been no part of the story that would have indicated that Superman was aware of this. How did Superman know he was coming to the Daily Planet? Any of that. Mm-hmm. All right, what's next on my list? The whole fact of Superman saying that he is forbidden to interfere is the reason why he originally... That hadn't stopped you before, Superman. When you completely reversed the rotation of the Earth in the first movie, when you sealed up the San Andreas Fault in the first movie, nothing has seemed to have stopped you before from interfering in the matters of Earth and human nature. But also, if when he says, I'm going to rid the world of the nuclear weapons, and I'm going to do it now, and every single nation stands up and applauds, that means they're all okay with it. And if they're all okay with it, why did they need Superman?
Right.
Couldn't they have just went, oh, hey, y'all all want that too? Okay. Right. Well, then.
And then for him to collect them all, they all have to be launched. So if they were smart,
that didn't make any sense too.
Yeah, like he never takes them out of a silo. It's only after they're launched does he.
And are they launching them? Are they sending them to Superman? Or are they going, oh, before he gets it, let's fire ours, and destroy somebody, and Superman stops it. Like,
maybe he's on the other side of the Earth carrying another one. And once again, like, is that how he spends his days? He just sits around and waits for, I hear one launching. Let me go over there.
See, that's why I think it was that he's in space, and they just launched it to him.
Yeah. Yeah, and they're all nicely fit in the net with all those warheads rumbling against each other when he's spinning them around.
Yes. Yeah. I also want to know, where did he get that net? Yeah. Like, and I don't know much about space and all that, but when he hurled it to the sun, I'm pretty sure that would have taken a few days. I don't care how strong Superman is. I still think that would have taken a few days before it actually got there, instead of just the, few seconds that it appears to be in the movie. You brought up Superman's hair. So let's talk about that. We got this one strand of hair they show in this museum that Superman donated. We're not going to talk about how did he just pull it out? Like how...
Oh, is that what he cut off the... I don't know how
I didn't
piece that together. I don't know why, if I just was distracted at that time, but I was like... Yeah,
right before you've got the museum attendant telling the story.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Superman donated this single string of... And as you can see, this single strand of hair is holding up 1,000 pounds, and then they leave, and that's when Lenny and Lex then come up. So yes,
gotcha.
Superman's, there's always the question of how does Superman cut his hair? Of course, we've seen in the animated series in the 90s, as well as they did it on Lois and Clark with Dean Cain, and they've done it in some comics where he shaves using his laser vision. But again, how does he cut his hair? But it's apparently strong enough to hold up a 1,000-pound weight, but doesn't stand against bolt cutters.
Right.
Lex just easily cuts
Right.
that hair with some bolt cutters.
Mhm.
Okay, sure. Whatever. Man, there's a lot. Okay, so we talked about earlier the double date and how the double date ends.
Mhm.
You know, Lex sends Clark a message. Nothing new. They've done this before where Lex sends out a message in a frequency that only Superman can hear.
Mhm.
Apparently this time it's also, he can put out a video that only
Yeah,
Superman can
sure.
see.
Yeah.
And you know what? I'll buy that. I'm fine with that. Lex is a genius. He
Hmm.
figured out a way to do it. Great and wonderful. How did he know where exactly Clark was standing so that he could tell him the building on the right?
Mhm. Mhm.
How did he know where he was standing to know the building would be on the right?
He's a criminal mastermind. That's how.
Yeah. The greatest criminal mastermind. Oh, my goodness. You see, Lacey falling out of space. There we go.
Can we talk about space a little bit about the fight? Just because
yeah,
this jumped out at me too. I love how they're like going at super speed and then all of a sudden like
Sudden
very
slow
slowly
down. Yeah.
to hit each other. Like,
Yes.
I'm like, can we get a consistent speed here? I just need a consistent speed. That's all I need.
Yeah. Especially for that moment when Superman comes flying
Mhm.
back.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Nuclear Man throws him, but then he comes flying back, and it looks like he's going really fast until we get the close-up shot, and then he's slow again.
Yeah.
It's all slow motion again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we made fun of a lot of this when we talked about Superman, the movie, the original.
Mm-hmm.
What did you think of Laura, Superman's mom, taking over as the voice instead of Jor-El? First off, what did you think of that? But secondly, how'd you like the fact that they went, screw it, Marlon Brando's already done it, so Laura had to say Krypton?
I don't think I noticed it when I watched it, but yeah, why not? At least give us some consistency, at least.
Well,
So,
they did it.
yeah.
She said Krypton.
Yeah. And then speaking of consistency, I just shook my head. We talked about, him flying with Lois, which was all like, replayed from previous, but why? Like, why does he walk off the side of the building to then transform into Superman?
Yeah. They make it look like he's suffering from depression.
Yeah, yeah. And then
Lois is even like, it's not that bad. It's not that bad.
Right.
Yeah.
And then, they fly around and he's like, I need somebody to talk to. And then he makes her forget everything again. I'm like, well, why are you screwing with this person's mind?
Yeah.
It's like,
but it's even more confusing because after they land, she says, I remember everything.
Yes, exactly.
So does that mean the forgetting kiss from Superman 2 didn't work?
Mm-hmm. Or only when he unlocks it, she remembers. But then when he locks it back up again, then she doesn't. It's just.
Yeah,
weird.
that's like how does this kiss? Which let's just go ahead and talk about all the weird superpowers that Superman portrays. There, of course, in Superman 2 is the funny thing where he throws the S
with his chest. Yeah.
Yeah, at Non and just wraps him up in a cellophane just for a second.
Mm-hmm.
I think Family Guy actually made fun of that. It's like, well, that was kind of annoying. But so yeah, we've got the memory wipe kiss, which we're not exactly sure how that works.
Mm-hmm.
We've got, like we were just talking about with Laura talking and saying, here's this crystal. Once you remove this crystal, the ship will go dead.
Mm-hmm.
You won't be able... Is that not the crystal from Superman 1 that he throws and creates
Exactly. Fortress of Solitude?
But we're talking about his powers here. What power is Superman staring at his ship and it just dissolves, disappears, including the blanket that was the tarp that was draped over it. It all just disappears. That's not a power I've ever known Superman to have.
And I love how it perfectly fits into his jacket pocket. Let's talk about convenience.
Yeah. This glowing green rock.
Yeah, nobody will notice.
Nobody noticed. And then during the double date, he has to, you think burn Lois's
Yeah.
food,
Yeah.
but then you ultimately find out he cooked it to perfection.
Perfectly. Right.
But that aside, that's not how your X-ray vision works, Superman. If you're seeing it into another room with your X-ray vision, and then you use your heat vision, you're still gonna burn through the wall and through the door of the oven.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Did Connor or Rosenthal ever read a Superman comic? And then the greatest one of all from this one, the blue lasers from his eyes that repair the Great Wall of China.
Yes.
In which if you look close enough, when he repairs, I guess, one side of the wall and then the other side of the wall, all they do is flip the image.
Yep.
My God.
Editing. Yeah.
And then the claymation bricks or whatever, stop motion bricks that they...
So I read that originally, in the original script, he was supposed to put it back together in super speed, but when the budget got cut, they couldn't do that. So he made it that way where he did it with his supervision, and all he did was reverse, like he broke the wall and then showed it in reverse for it to come back together. The model they used. So
yeah, and then he just waves. And flies off.
You're welcome.
Man, okay. Let's see what else I got. Oh, Jeremy. Let's talk about Jeremy. Why is that classroom scene so badly dubbed?
Yeah. There's a few bad dubs in this one. What's the nuclear in the nuclear shelter or whatever? The one guy that's on the phone, he's got like the really thick Southern accent, I guess.
Yeah,
that's on the phone or whatever. Like that was definitely an overdub. Like that's not that guy's real voice. Like what did that guy really sound like? That's what I want to know.
But as soon as they cut that television feed and the teacher starts talking, the teacher's badly dubbed.
Yeah.
And then Jeremy starts talking, and I don't know what 27-year-old they used to voice Jeremy. And then when... I'm not even going to talk about how bad it looked when he's walking to the UN, and they clearly just used some like department store in England or wherever
right.
They filmed that with, 20 people following along. After you see a movie like Man of Steel, when you see Superman as he has to go to trial.
Yeah.
And you see that huge crowd and him walking up the steps. Like, that's what that moment should have been. And it wasn't. But getting back to my point of Jeremy, where are his parents? And why is he sitting in Lois's lap? Like, that kid's got to be like 12. Like, how old is this kid? And why is he sitting in Lois's lap?
Yeah.
Like,
with the voice of a 27-year-old.
Yes. It was just so weird. All right.
The forgotten character in Act 2 and 3.
Yeah. Oh my God. Then that's the other thing. There's like 5 different stories going on in this movie. Because you got the Nuclear Man stuff. You've got the Lois and Lacey double date. One likes Clark, one likes Superman. You've got the Warfields taking over the Daily Planet. You've got the thing at the beginning, which is probably one of the best, like, in my opinion, one of the best parts is Superman having to deal with the death of his mom and what's he going to do with the farm.
Yeah, I totally forgot about that scene until you said it. I'm like, that is forgotten about completely. Like, what is that scene even there for him to look like he can't hit a baseball and then launch it into space? Which I thought was going to, because I hadn't seen it before. It's like, oh, he launches the baseball in space and that creates Nuclear Man.
No, because
I know,
and all that is, I know, but all that is a replay of the first movie when he kicks the football.
Yeah, exactly. I told you they just took elements from the previous movies that they liked and just reworked them into this. Because even the whole fight downtown, I'm like, we saw this in 1, we saw this in 2
with Zod, and
so I was like, I like, to your point, I like that they did have a battle on the moon. At least it wasn't in the city, but. let's be honest. If you're gonna fight a man, if Lex Luthor's really the criminal mastermind, he would have sent Clark to the desert to find Nuclear Man, because there's no shade. It's all sun.
Yep.
He would be superpower. Thank you. I rest my case.
No, it's agreed. Yeah. Did you, in any of your research, did you find out about the fact that the Nuclear Man we got in the original story was actually Nuclear Man 2?
Yes. Yeah.
That there was?
There were two of them originally.
Yeah. So if anybody doesn't know what I'm talking about, see if you can find the deleted scenes.
Mm-hmm.
Because the scenes do exist of where Lex actually creates I don't know if he was supposed to be, like if his name's Nuclear Man, but he does create a, clone of Superman to begin with. And this guy actually looks a little bit more Superman-ish. He's got the brunette hair. It is very weird for a movie that's probably is supposed to be geared towards kids, because when he is revealed, he's nude and has this like pie tin plate covering up his private area. It's very odd to see in a movie like this. But anyway, I did actually kind of like this character a little bit. Because it reminded me a lot of Bizarro.
Yeah, I did read that was one of the original ideas was for Nuclear Man to be more like, or like they talked about, instead of having the Nuclear Man be played by somebody else, that it was going to be Christopher Reeve playing more like a Bizarro type Superman character. But
yeah, I'm glad they didn't go the Christopher Reeve playing, because they had just done Superman 3 where you had the, Clark Kent versus evil Superman. But again, if you see this deleted footage, this original Nuclear Man, he had more of a Bizarro look. He was supposed to be a little bit more dim-witted, I guess more childlike, not as intelligent. And then in the original story, Superman not only defeats him, but in the process destroys him, which is what causes Lex to make the version of Nuclear Man that we get. So there was probably a lot more of Superman, or not Superman, but Lex and Lenny in their mad scientist outfits,
right.
Doing the Bunsen and Beaker routine. So there was originally another Nuclear Man, and I think they also should have kept that in the movie. But this is a lot of woulda, shoulda, coulda in this movie.
Absolutely.
I think there was a lot of potential, and so I think that makes this a good time to give our final decision.
Let's do it.
Of bag it, stack it, or trade it. So, Tim, what say you?
You kind of swayed me a little bit talking about it's important in its own way because of where it stands in comic book movie history. So for that reason, instead of trading it, I will stack it.
Okay.
Because originally I was going to trade it, but it's not bag it worthy by any means, but it is stackable.
Yes, I agree with you. It's not bag it worthy at all. As a Christopher Reeve movie, I cannot trade it. So it's a stack it for me too. No, it's not a good movie. It's not a complete movie.
Yeah. I would like to see the full. I would like to see the full cut.
Yeah, I almost wish that they could give us a director's cut of this. I don't know if it actually would have truly been a director's cut, but maybe an extended cut. Call it that. But yeah, it's Christopher Reeve as Superman. Again, they were trying to say something in this movie. Of course, we're in the middle of the Cold War. The whole thing about the president talking about the summits failing, I mean, that had actually happened in the real world with Ronald Reagan and Gorbachev. And of course, Cold War was a hot button topic. And then you've got what Tim and I kind of alluded to of, the kind of talk about media and where media was going. And
journalism.
So they're trying to say something in this movie. They just failed at really delivering.
I think they should have focused on one instead of both. I think they kind of
there's too much going on.
It got too preachy in parts, and it just felt like a little heavy-handed.
Yeah.
That way.
All right, so let's get into some recommendations. So clearly in this case, we are going to recommend something that you should probably watch or read other than Superman 4, The Quest for Peace. So I'll go first on this because we just talked about how I think they were trying to say something and they just failed at doing it. I'm going to give you an example of when it was done correctly. And this is in a comic. It's a one-shot from November of 1998. It's called Superman Peace on Earth. Again, just a one-shot comic written by Paul Dini. Great Paul Dini. And the artwork is by Alex Ross. So that means this is a beautiful comic to look at. But in the story, Superman decides that he is going to try to eliminate world hunger.
Okay. And
in the process, he finds out that that's not as easy as you would think because, that's one of those things that people think is that, if superheroes really existed, they could do this and they could do that. And this story does a good job of saying it's not as easy as you think it would be. Mm-hmm. Superman runs into problems as he's trying to deliver food to all these different nations and countries. And it does what I think Reeve was trying to what he wanted this movie to do. But it does it in a better way. The ending to this comic, this one shot, is far more poignant than what we got out of this movie. And so there you have it. Superman Peace on Earth. If you can find a copy or you can find it digitally. I looked for it on DC Infinite and could not find it. I'm starting to not like DC Infinite. I'm thinking about canceling my subscription because it's either they don't have it or it's under their Ultra subscription, which is just a ridiculous price. But anyway,
right.
So you hear me, DC. I still have my subscription to Action Comics, but yeah, I might be ending that digital one. But anyway, what do you have, Tim, as a recommendation?
I'll have what you're having. What you described sounds way better than anything I could have come up with. But yeah, I want to read that now. For me, it is kind of tough because I don't really know. I don't know the comics as well, so it's not something I would think to read.
Yeah, but what's just another movie?
Yeah.
Like, what's a movie that you can probably think of a movie that tells kind of this story, or a story similar, probably in a much better way. I mean, just to throw out one, not to try to put words into your mouth, but what about War Games?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think I was kind of stuck in somewhat of like a superhero type, but just giving that War Games is a good one. That is a good one. Man, I'm drawing a blank completely. Really, what I was really gonna say was like I would go back and watch either the first two Superman movies because they are so much better. Even though the second one has its whichever version you watch, whether the Donner or the Lester version, has its flaws, but that's the Superman movie that I want to remember. Like 3 and 4, they're watchable, but they're not the ones that you want to go back to again and again. Yeah. So yeah, but War Games is a good one.
And of course, when the Superman franchise finally returned with Superman Returns,
mm-hmm.
And they tried to continue the Christopher Reeve universe, they just ignored 3 and 4.
Exactly, for good reason.
So yeah, so there you have it. All right, well, thank you, Tim, for joining me on this. I guess we can call this annual now.
Yeah. Even though we don't have another Superman movie to do after this, or we're gonna.
Well, no, we're gonna keep going. We're gonna jump to Superman Returns.
Nice.
We still got.
Okay.
Yeah, we got Man of Steel.
Yeah.
And then by the time we get to it, we'll have the new James Gunn Superman movie.
Yeah.
To talk about. And we'll have to throw in maybe some other stuff in there as well. There is a Superman musical that aired on TV back in the day.
Missed that.
So yeah, I have it on DVD.
Of course you do.
So,
I was waiting for it.
There you go. All right. Well, what you got coming up here in the summer? Because we're right at the beginning of June. What you got coming up on? I know you got your Summer of Sequels.
Summer of Sequels 2, Revenge of the Sequels is here, where we're it's very tongue in cheek because it is our second Summer of Sequels, but all of our sequels are part 3s. So
that's great.
Yeah, so we're kicking it off with we're kicking off with Superman 3. Then
Yeah,
this fits
so
together.
Go backwards a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. Kind of watch them out of order. And then we'll do Karate Kid 3, Rambo 3, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Then in the August, we'll hit the horror classics, Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, and Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors. And then, and then I didn't realize that when I was originally planned my summer, I got my weeks off because I do every other week, and realized I have a third Friday in August. So I'm adding a bonus that is not a movie that we've covered before, but it's the third in the franchise, but it's the first in the franchise that came out in the 80s. We're going to do Rocky 3 to close out the summer of sequels.
Yeah.
So
So I
can't do 1 or 2 because they're in the 70s, but we can kick off the Rocky franchise with Rocky 3. So looking forward to those, and we'll be going to video format in June, so you can watch us on YouTube and see what we look like, and that should be fun if you want to.
and then please continue to listen.
Maybe my podcast numbers will go up as my YouTube numbers go down.
I don't want to see that. All right. So exciting. Yeah, summer series, which we do here on Moving Panels as well. We've got a summer series starting up, which if you haven't heard the ad from the last couple of weeks, you'll get to hear it again at the end of this episode. But we are doing a summer series on Mark Millar and a lot of his adaptations, and that'll take us through the rest of the summer. And then we get into August, where we get to always have our fun bad movie episode. So look forward to that. But thanks everybody for joining us. Have a great summer. Keep both 80s Flick Flashback and Moving Panels as part of your summer listening.
Yes.
When you're out on the beach, when you're just taking a walk or a hike, or you're out doing some yard work, give us a listen. We'll love to keep you entertained over the summer. But we'll go ahead and wrap things up for today. For Moving Panels, I'm Laramy Wells, and I'll see you on the other side of the page.
From print to screen, the legends stand. Comic kings with the upper hand.
This summer on Moving Panels, we're diving headfirst into the twisted, thrilling, and totally unpredictable world of Mark Millar. He's the mind behind some of the most intense, outrageous, and surprisingly heartfelt comics of the 21st century, and we're covering it all. We're breaking down the brutal, bullet-riddled chaos of Wanted. We're tackling the dark superhero dynasty of Jupiter's Legacy. We're getting our red mist on with Kick-Ass and Kick-Ass 2, but we're not stopping there. This summer series isn't just about the adaptations. We're unpacking Millar's impact on comics and Hollywood, his controversial use of violence, the satire hidden in the bloodshed, and the political and social commentary that runs beneath the mayhem. And once it's all said and done, we're going to crown the best of the Mark Millar adaptations. Which one reigns supreme? Which one missed the mark? You'll have to tune in to find out. So subscribe now wherever you get your podcasts, and don't miss a single episode of our Mark Millar Summer Series right here on Moving Panels.